Welcome back, family, team, and YouTubers. This week, we're not doing a training video. We are in week 4 of our Ironman training for Chattanooga, Tennessee. It's a recovery week, so we've done 3 weeks of progressive work. It's time to just take it back a little bit this week, mileage-wise, help the body recover. This week's interval run is going to be a special run. Today we're running, tonight actually, 7 o'clock, Police Appreciation 5K. It was actually the first 5K that I actually ever ran, first official run race that I ever did back in 2017. And the cool thing about this race is I've done it 3 years in a row. Unfortunately, we couldn't do it last year due to COVID. So 17, 18, and 19, I was able to participate in this event. I've always put it all out there. It's just a fun local race with a lot of support. I've always tried to crush it and get, that 5K PR at this race. But for this training plan, we need to come up with a 5K base idea of what our heart rate zones are and what our power zones are. So when we go forward with the training plan, when we have our easy run or moderate run or interval run, I'll know exactly what heart rate zone I'm supposed to be in or my power zone, depending if I'm going by running power that day. So I'm super excited about getting some of this data, all this information overload. I've broken down 17, 18, and 19's race. I've progressively run faster every year at this race. It's been a while since I did one of these live event 5Ks, so believe it or not, it's even a little nervous because it hurts. These short distances hurt. You're not used to going out there and putting in that 20, 25 minute all out effort in your training. So it's going to be interesting tonight. We'll take the camera down there. We'll show you the vibe. I'll let you know how we do. We'll break down some of the data afterwards, and I'll show you maybe how I can break down these zones now. So when you see it in the future, whether they're doing an interval run or a moderate run, you'll know kind of what zone to be in. And hopefully it'll be helpful for you. It'll give you some sense of direction in your training, where sometimes you can't just go by pace or you can't go by mile per hour if we're talking about bike power. Every day is different. You could be comparing a 60-degree day to a 90-degree day. You could be talking about a very windy day versus a calm day, a morning run versus a night run. There's so many variables out there, but certain things that don't really fluctuate too much is going to be the heart rate zone that you can be in relative to your effort, and especially running power, just that power that your feet are putting onto the ground to move you forward. That's something that's more of a constant, where if you trained in power zones like this, you'll always have a constant training and you'll always be able to hit your metrics out there and really crush it. So we'll see you there tonight. It's looking fun. I got my retro shirt on from a couple years ago. I'm ready to get out there and kick this 5K in the butt. Hopefully see some friends down there. It's going to be a good time, and we'll let you know how it works out. So again, thanks for tuning in. Give me a thumbs up if you like the videos, subscribe to the channel, and don't forget, this week we're also coming out with our top 5 running essentials video, top 5 gear things that I like to wear when I'm out there running. So if that video is not loaded up yet, make sure you subscribe to check it this weekend, or by the time this video loads, it's already been out there. Stay safe, stay healthy, and balance that life 1 mile at a time. All right, we are warming up to the 5K tonight. Out in the field, keeping it soft on the feet. Typically, I'll do a mile warm up, nice and easy, before the 5K. Keep those legs warm. And give it an honest effort. We'll see what we got tonight. It's good to finally do a real event. See all the local race teams, local faces, announcers. It's gonna be a good time. All right, get this warm up done. Head to the start line and we'll give it hell. Later. Say hi finally.
Hi.
So, Katie's an early morning partner. And we figured out earlier that we get to actually run a race at the same time.
First time.
First time ever.
That's right.
All right. Nice and easy. All right. We'll see you at the end. She's probably not going to be smiling.
No, I'll be crying.
Oh, hi.
That's Dave. Dave's fast.
Not tonight.
Oh, God. All right, 5K done. It hurt as expected. Did about where I thought I would be. Have to break all that down later. Look at the heart rate data, power, pace, all that fun stuff. Just finishing up the workout for the night, a couple miles cool down. And that's it. We'll take a look at it later. We'll see what we got. Let's good seeing everybody out there. Familiar faces. Everyone happy, everyone crushing it, getting it done. So, finish this up. See you in a little bit.
All three of these between 5:55 and 6:10 a mile. Second, Suffolk County PD, East Northport, Christopher Ward, 18:53. And the winner by less than 30 seconds, Christopher Baker, Port Jeff Station.
So I ran this for her tonight.
5:55 miles for the...
Oh, hi.
That's Dave. Dave's fast.
Not tonight.
All right, welcome back. All right, we're here to talk about the training plan and the zones, running power, running heart rate. We did the 5K test. We're done. We got some numbers. First, we're going to compare them to the last 3 times we ran that 5K. It's nice because it's the same time of year. It's about the same time of conditions, humidity-wise, same course, so we can get a lot of the same data. So we're going to break that down first, and then we're going to dive into the training plan that I'm doing, 80-20 triathlon for Ironman. What 80-20 is, why it's important if you're going to follow the 80-20 plan to really hammer those zones down. We're talking about when people say zone 1, zone 2, it's easy, it's a moderate run, it's a little confusing. This is why people hire coaches. This is why coaches set it up for them. Some people find it easier. I like to dive into these numbers. I like to know why these things are working or why people are telling you to do a certain thing. We're not going to try and get too crazy into the stats here. I wanted this to be kind of surface level for a beginner if they're really not understanding the zones or haven't really looked into them before. More to that intermediate person where they think they're maybe doing the zones, but maybe they'll learn something or two. And likewise, if there's something in this video that you think is maybe not 100% accurate or something that you do a little different that works for you, please comment below, message me. I'd like to hear from you. I'd like to see how 80-20 works for you out there. So without further ado, let's break it down real quick. We're just going to dive into the 5K. We're going to plug in some numbers versus the last 5Ks. All right, so here you go. Real quick, 2017, 2018, 2019, these are all the stats of that 5K test. It's nice because they're good to get that 20-minute baseline of kind of figuring out what your max heart rate is, your average heart rate, and all that. So as you can look back, way back 2017, that was the first year I started doing things. So it was very preliminary information. It was only running basically for 4, 5, 6 months at that time. Just kind of every run you do, you get better at it. That's kind of the way it is. When you're new at something, no matter what you do, it just works out. So that year we ran 23:47. These are the mile breakdowns. See, we kind of just went out there, paced it, got a number. We wanted to, I think, run under 25 minutes that year, and it worked out great. And you can see back in the day, I had a Fitbit. So that's where we dug back to get that information on that account. Following year, I've had the same Garmin watch, 735 XT. So these will be numbers that are pretty accurate across the board. That went down to a 22:41 with a 7:18 pace and a 20:52 with a 6:43 pace over those 2 years. We can see our average heart rate, 164, 170, somewhere in the same ballpark, max heart rate. So heart rates were a little higher because it was a harder effort. With that Garmin HRM Tri heart rate strap, which I talk about in my top 5 running essentials video, you get some extra information. You get your cadence, which you can see I had a much higher cadence here. Your stride, so it was a longer stride, a higher cadence. Your left-right balance and your ground contact time. And we can see here, usually go out hot the first mile and then kind of stagger off. I was able to hold below 7 here and was able to run a 6:43 pace. So last year, well, back in 2019, I should say, we were able to, base our heart rate zones off of this run right here. Last year it was virtual, so we did it in September at a track. And you can tell right here, this is the comparison that I would use for last year and where I was at. These are the paces right here. 6:17, 6:48, 6:58, and a 6:26. That year we actually ran, I have the time right here, a 20:48 for that, and that was a 6:40 pace. So if we base that off of 2019, we did actually run a little faster. It was on a track. Let's take a look at average heart rate, 170, 180. We're smack on the money where we were a year prior, so that's good right there. And as you can tell right here, I didn't have it in 2019. I wound up going out and getting the Stride foot pod. So you can tell right there what that is. It gives you a little more deeper numbers and metrics as far as power. You may hear people talk about power on the bike based on the crank. That's how much actual power your feet are putting into it, regardless of atmospheric conditions or hills or pace. It's just that's how much power you're putting, whether it's 150 watts, 200 watts. That's a a very solid way to judge your effort, regardless of if you're going uphill, downhill, into a wind, and whatnot. So they transferred that over to running. You're able to put that on your shoe. I've never really run with power, but I'm going to start doing it. I've had this now probably for a year and a half. I've just had it on my shoe every single run, charge it every 2 weeks. It's just been logging data and setting things up. I'll show you the app real quick in a few minutes. And so we're going to not only talk about heart rate, we're going to talk about run power, because that's something that's pretty interesting. Power. What it's telling me is that on that Stride Foot Pod at this virtual run last year, I averaged 342 watts for my 5K. And it breaks it down by mile right here, what your average power was. And what's good about that is we're able to plug that power number, just like we do with the bike, into Stride's calculator, and it'll actually generate strides for you. So when it says to go run 5 miles easy, all you have to look at is the power on your watch. So if your group decides to go do some hills that day, you just keep it in the power zone. Granted, your pace is going to be a lot slower going up that hill, but if you're doing an easy run, you have to keep a constant. You can't overpower yourself on that hill, because that's not an easy workout. If the goal is to do 5 miles easy, you have to do it prescribed in the 80-20 plan as easy. And we'll talk about the 80-20 philosophy in a few minutes. So let's plug this in right here real quick, what we did. So we went out last night, we smashed it. We did a 6:12. That was actually faster than both last 5Ks. We'll just compare them to right here. We'll zoom out a little bit so you can see. And we completely fell off the rails after that. I was just super excited to be out there, super excited to be out in a live race, and the legs just felt like they weren't there after the first mile. It was actually in Training Peaks, which is another program that logs tons of information, said that was last night I ran my third fastest standalone mile. I believe it was like a 6:05. So the takeaway from that is, I guess the mile is still there. We just have to hold that for a little while longer. And that 0.1 kick, which is always fun to log just to see what you had left in the tank at the end, we logged it in at a 5:40. And we're just going to talk about heart rate right now. 168 was for average and 179 for max. So what we can tell about that is over the last 2 years, heart rate 170, 168 average, 170 average, max 182, 179, and 180. So my heart rates really haven't changed much in the past 2 years for a 5K effort. The average is staying pretty good. The max is staying right where it's supposed to be. So now we're going to dive into things a little more interesting, like power. So let's talk about average power from last night. The last 5K was 342. This one had me at 337. Now, granted, why would this be a much faster time when the power is almost the same? This was a track, flat, no obstructions. There was nobody out there to have to run around or do anything like that. So this was more of an accurate 5K effort out there. So 337 was the average power. That's what we're going to go with. So we have that now. 80-20. What is 80-20? Well, I'm following the 80-20 triathlon by Matt Fitzgerald. He has 80-20 specifically just for running. So if you're a runner, and I highly recommend that book for runners, because what do we all get stuck in the rut of? Going out there, running, thinking every run has to be faster than the last run, which when you're new at running, you can get away with that for a while. But if you want longevity in the sport, if you're not a professional runner and that's all you do, you have to think long term. How are you going to feel in 5 years if nagging injuries keep coming up and you have to bench yourself for 30 days from the thing that you really love doing? Longevity is key, and small progressive increases over time is going to be where it's at. So he recommends 80% of your training volume for the week, the month, whatever you're doing, should be at an easy to moderate level. Now, easy, what do we think is easy? Probably a lot easier than you're doing. We like to get out there, fall into this comfortable rhythm. And when you look at the zone charts, there's going to be a zone 1, which is easy, zone 2, which is that moderate zone, and then there's going to be these other zones, this gray zone they call it, which is you don't want to be in that zone. It's just not getting you, it's giving you too much run stress versus your recovery. If you run at that zone all week, your body is just going to get fatigued very quickly and potentially get injured. And then that 20%, that other 20% for the week is hard. So when you're saving for that 80% throughout the week and doing these easy to moderate runs, those 20%, those intervals, those threshold runs, those VO2 max workouts, you can really crush them because you're going to be so rested and ready to go mentally and physically that you're going to smash these workouts. So if you want more about that 80-20 plan, I'll recommend his books, The Running Plan and The Triathlon Plan. I'll put links to where you can get those books in the description below. But we'll take that running power and we're going to generate something out of it. So here we go. We're going to pull up now the Stride Power Center. So this is what the Stride, that foot pod looks like with all the information. Tons of information you can get out of this. So right now it's telling me that my critical power is about 325, which is a little lower than the 337 that we ran for that 20-minute effort last night. Erring on the side of, I like to push the limits of those easy runs. I'm going to stay with their automatically generated 325. I mean, look at all this data for the past few months that they're able to use to generate what they think my critical power should be. And then they break it down right here. Look at this, power zones. Zone 1, easy, 212 to 260. Zone 2, moderate, 260 to 293. Matt Fitzgerald talks about the gray zone, which is right between 2 and 3. Threshold, interval, and reps. Just off of that, what I can do is on my Garmin watch, download the Stride IQ Connect app. It'll be a watch screen right on here. I'll set that up. It'll just tell me power as I'm running. I don't want to look at anything else. Maybe just the mileage, just to see if I'm done with that 5-mile run. So now, next week, if I have a zone 1 or easy, which is zone 1, 5-mile run, I know that I should stay between 212 and 260 watts. Granted, it could be very hot out. It could be a little bit of a hilly course, and you're going to have to slow down your pace a lot. It's going to suck when you load that Strava file up and it shows that you ran a lot slower than you usually have. People are going to start wondering, oh, is he okay? No, well, I'm training smart. That's what you have to think about. One thing he brings up in the book is Strava, and we all know Strava, the social media of swim, bike, and run, where if you're not throwing up those medals and those local legend badges and those trophies, you're not working hard enough. But what's the ultimate goal? Race day. I'm putting a lot of time and effort and a lot of investment into this September race in Tennessee to do an Ironman, and I want to go there strong, healthy, fast, and I want to feel good afterwards. If I beat the crap out of myself for 12, 14, 16 weeks out of this plan, I'm going to go into that race super fatigued and have a miserable day. So that's why it's very important when they're talking about these easy or moderate runs to stay within that zone. So right on your watch, it's going to tell you average watts for that run. So that's what I'm going to follow because that's a constant thing, unlike heart rate, which can fluctuate a little bit depending on how you feel that day or how the temperature is outside, or if you're going up a hill. When they talk about now those interval runs, so we have to go to the track and we have to do 6 20-second intervals. Okay, we're going to run easy. We're going to warm up. We're going to stay in that zone. And then once we get to those interval workouts, look at this. We're going to go see if we can get that interval watt power on our watch for those 20 seconds. So we're looking to push 325 to 374 watts, or at least 325 plus for those intervals. And then once that 20 seconds is down, we want to make sure we back it down. Because what happens on interval track workouts, you get those legs moving after the first 1 or 2 intervals, and then it's very hard to slow down because your body's just, your heart rate's going up, your adrenaline's starting to go a little bit. You're going to have something to look at now to be able to slow down enough because of the power. So that's how we're going to use power with running. I'll let you know how it goes a few weeks from now once we're in and we can get a block of training down with these power zones. So real quick, next week we're going to look at, again, this is the training plan that we're following. It's an 80-20 plan by Matt Fitzgerald. We're in week 4. Next week is week 5. So let's just look at the runs. Easy run, 5.5 miles. So I'm going to go out there 5.5 miles and try and stay between 212 and 260 watts. If I'm feeling sluggish that day, I can stay to the bottom of that range. If I'm feeling good, I can push a little bit to the top and try and be in the high 250s, 260. Interval run, 40 minutes, 6 by 1 minute fast. So 40 minutes, we're going to be out there in that easy zone warming up. We can get real close to the bottom of that moderate zone, and then we're going to hit those intervals. So we're going to try and get 325, 374 watts during those intervals and back it down. And then we're going to go 9-mile endurance run for our long run. Now, Matt Fitzgerald talks about endurance runs. You might have seen this with the plan that I posted. It's his workout types. You look, endurance, ride, run, swim. Ride, run, or swim, the designated duration at a steady, moderate pace. So moderate pace, zone 2. So 260 to 293 watts. We're not running at threshold. We're not running that high 5K pace, but we can warm up into that, do your mile or so into it, get into that zone 2 moderate, and then cool it down. But at the end of that run, you should be between 260 and 293. Now, real quick, I want to show you something. Let's go to recent runs here. Go to calendar. Remember that rainy run I did, that endurance run, 8 miles, which was supposed to be at that moderate zone. So I was really supposed to be between 260, 293. It was wet out. I just wanted to have a fast run. I saw that 8-minute per mile pace within reach, so I really pushed. Now, is it good to push once in a while? Yes, but let's go back now and take a look at when we ran that. Okay, so here we go. This was that rainy run. So here we go, 304 watts. So that's what we ran that run at. We can say we averaged right about around 300. Then we really kicked it up at the end, 324, 323. So when we go back to look at this, what do we know? 303. I probably ran that run too much. It was a threshold run. I was at 90 to 100% of my critical power. That's probably why I was feeling really sluggish after that the next day. Problem is, if you keep doing things like that and doing your workouts at a higher intensity than your training calls for, it's going to affect the next workout. And then if you're on the bike the next day, it's going to affect your next workout. So if you have a bike ride the next day that you may need to do at a moderate pace, and you wind up at threshold pace for that as well, you're just going to accumulate fatigue. The whole thing about fitness is accumulating enough fatigue and enough performance, scaling back a little bit like I am this week. Your body will absorb all that performance that you put in, and then it's going to help recover, and then it's going to push into the next training block. But if you just do 12, 16, 18 weeks of zone 2 moderate, zone 3 threshold, interval type workouts and crush it all the time, A, you're going to have a recipe for disaster as far as injuries, and B, you're just going to fatigue yourself way too much. So that's what I'm going to do with critical power. You can do that with heart rate as well. So if you take a look at these right here, run heart rate, 8020endurance.com has these calculators. So I was at 168 average for that 20 minutes. It's going to tell you right here that zone 1, 2, X, what to stay away from, 3, Y, 4, and 5. You can use this now with your heart rate. So it's telling me on that easy run, I should be at between 121, 136 heart rate. Zone 2, 136 to 151. We all know though, it's very tough to judge this. Heart rate also isn't exactly your body. Once you start pushing, say, up a hill, it takes a little bit of time, more than instantaneously, for that heart rate to go up, to register on your device, and then get back to you. There's just a delay in your body's perception or effort level with how your heart rate responds. With the power, it's instantaneous. What your foot puts down, that's exactly what it tells you on your watch. So that's why it's a little more accurate. And then they recommend this X zone right here. So this is very important if you're going to go by heart rate, and the 80-20 plan is they really recommend you just stay out of this zone. If that was me, 151 to 160, they're saying is just accumulating too much fatigue and not enough performance. You should do your easy moderate stuff down here, 121, 136, 136 to 151. And if I'm going to do interval work, I should get that heart rate to 160 to 168. And then down here is some VO2 max type stuff, where if you really want to really push yourself on an interval. So here you go, 80-20 endurance. This is what they recommend with the watts. So if I put in 337, which is what I ran yesterday, this is also what they recommend right here. Let's just take a look. They recommend staying away from the 282 to 301 range. They're saying that's not very good. And guess where I was? Remember for that run, 303-ish. I was, just way out of that moderate zone. I should have stepped it down a little bit. I would have felt a lot better during that 8-mile run. So they're saying to stay at a 282 to 301. If we go by stride, 282 to 301 is just that high end of the moderate to the low end of the threshold. So we'll redo this 80-20 with the critical power from the Stride app. We'll print this out and we'll use this one as a guide, just because this is the matched 80-20 chart and calculator for the Matt Fitzgerald plan. It'll give you that easy, the moderate zone, the zone to stay out of your zone 3, your zone Y, 4, and 5. He adds those 2 zones in. And as well, if you want, you can go to 8020endurance.com. He explains right here what all the zones are. Zone 1, very low intensity. Zone 2, fairly broad. You might wonder what it is, but it is that moderate level. Zone X is avoid this zone. It's the gap between 2 and 3. more so than the zone itself, represents the moderate intensity rut. Most runners get stuck without realizing, so it's just that higher end of the moderate zone that they say to a lot of people just get stuck in when they go out there and run. You should slow it down for that 80% and then step above that zone X into your zone 3 right here, and that's where you should be doing your interval work. So you go zone 4 and 5, that'll hit you for that interval work right here. Threshold, so zone 3 would be something that I would run that 5K at. And 4 and 5 right here is going to be when I want to do those interval work, that 1 minute sprint efforts at the track. And that's where I'll be for that. I hope this sheds some light on why it's important sometimes you go out and run those 5Ks all the time, you know, some of the local runners here, and you're smashing numbers. That's great. But if you're training for a marathon or half marathon, Ironman, whatever it is, you can use those numbers. If you put in your best effort out there for a 5K, you can extract some of that data and then put it into a training plan and try and structure your workouts. And it's very important. My only takeaway on this is think big picture, stay healthy, do smart training. If you're self-coached, do your research. Don't just go out there and smash the miles. Again, if you're a beginner, it works for a certain period of time until you start developing imbalances in your body, developing some issues. Maybe you'll start having runner's knee, plantar. I know about these things. It happens. So you scale it back, you get smarter. That lets you progress through to the next level. And that's the idea. We want to stay doing this. You wonder how certain people are out there 50, 60, 70, 80 years old, still out there getting their miles in. That's who you want to be if you're doing this. So stay healthy, stay balanced. I hope you got something out of this. Hope it wasn't too in depth. Thumbs up if you liked the video. Don't forget to subscribe. And that's it. Remember, balance that life 1 mile at a time and get after it. Later.